Hey, welcome to Second Chance Youth Ranch TV. Don't go away, because on this show we have Judge Joseph Wood, who was raised in foster care, adopted as a child, and a powerful testimony. So don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome to Second Chance Youth Ranch TV. I'm Perry Black, and on this show I have a very special guest, Joseph Wood, all the way from
Central Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas, all over the state of Arkansas.
Because you have been living up until recently in Northwest Arkansas.
That's right.
And what, a year or so ago you moved to Central Arkansas?
I've been down in Central Arkansas working with the governor and sitting on her cabinet, and then recently, obviously, I just had to transition into becoming chair of the Republican Party of Arkansas.
Now, you just kind of glazed over that, Judge, just like real simple. Yeah, I've been working for the governor and I've been doing so and so, like no big deal. Like everybody gets up every day in Arkansas and goes to work for the governor.
Sure. I ran for lieutenant governor. I think I was back visiting with you guys probably before and after I was running. I didn't win lieutenant governor. I had been the judge up in Northwest Arkansas,
but
Washington
the
County.
steps of a righteous man are ordained of the Lord.
That's right, what you said.
And there had to be a little bit of a disappointment that you didn't win that election, but look what God is doing.
He does that.
He always turns our test into what?
Testimony.
Testimony.
Come on.
So let's talk about a testimony up in the house.
Yes.
Are you still referred to as judge?
I am, and most people will always call me that, even though I'm chairman now. I was a secretary for the cabinet secretary, but people still call me judge, and that's fine, as long as they call me. That's all.
All right, I want to kind of bring our viewers up to date as to what you're doing right now, and then we're going to go way back to where'd you come from, how'd you get here?
Sure. Well, right now I am the chairman of the Republican Party of Arkansas, and so that's really helping. One, my vision is that we have an exemplary party, being the Republican Party, that we're the exemplary party in the state of Arkansas. And quite frankly, I want us to be an exemplary party in the country. I want everybody looking at us to say, if you're going to be in the Republican Party, you need to look like what Arkansas is. And so we get a chance to raise funds, because we can't do anything unless we raise dollars. And that allows us to then go and get volunteers and find candidates to run for office and then win. And winning candidates, we want them to obviously go in and work on legislation and policies that's going to help support the principles of the Republican Party.
Why the Republican Party? Because I grew up in Arkansas, and I was told from childhood that the Republican Party's a bunch of rich people, and the other party, who I won't give any advertising for, they're for the working man. And my daddy was a farmer. Didn't even own the farm. He just worked on the farm, a hog farm in Jonesboro. And so I grew up with that same mentality that, you know, you got your working party and then you got your rich people party. Is that really accurate?
Well, I guess they didn't check my bank account. So I got 3 daughters and a wife. They may be rich, but I got lint in my pocket. No, I think it truly is a falsehood that that's the case. In fact, I'm from the inner city of Chicago, and
so
the Republican.
How did you become a conservative and a Republican?
Sure. I worked hard in the streets of Chicago. A lot of gangs, a lot of drugs, a lot of violence. I was the oldest of 4, so being given that responsibility of taking care of my brothers and sisters, so they don't get caught up in the gangs and drugs. I started a youth group, and as a teenager, became very big, very fast. I always believed in life and support of and foster. I come out of the foster system, so I I struggled with why nothing was being changed in the city of Chicago. I know all the work. I was local school council, school board, did all this work over the years, and I didn't see the change. And I was talking to a young, older man, a mentor, and he said, "You're talking to me like I'm a Democrat." And I was stopped. I'm like, everybody in Chicago's a Democrat, black, white, old, young. He said, "No," and that's an older black man. He said, "I'm a Republican." And my mouth just dropped. In Chicago? A black Republican on top of that? No. He said, in fact, I'm a 3rd-generation Republican.
Wow.
And he went on to say, he said, "You're frustrated because I know what you believe. I see how hard you work. And then on Tuesday election, you go and vote against everything you believe in."
Oh, my.
Boy, that hit me like a ton of bricks. And he said, "That's because you don't know." And so he started talking about the Republican Party, and we believe in God. We believe in the sanctity of life. We believe in individual development and self-initiative and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, man, scales fell off my eyes. I'm like, okay, sign me up. And I switched parties in 1988. I think we were the only two Republicans in Chicago.
Who may have been running for president around 88?
It was 88. President Bush was going now. Reagan was just coming out, and Bush was going in.
So I beat you to the Republican Party. I tell you how. I worked at Safeway,
Okay.
a grocer
Right.
at 12th and Lewis.
Okay.
And Carter, born again Baptist, was running against Ronald Reagan for president. And so we are a union company. So above the time clock was the platform of the one party, Jimmy Carter, and the other party being Ronald Reagan's party. And I walked up there waiting to clock in, and I started reading the two party platforms. And I had always voted Democrat.
Sure.
And so I went down the list, and I went, well, I'm not that, I'm not that, I'm not that, I'm not that.
That's right.
And I looked over on the other list with Ronald Reagan. I said, that's me, that's me, that's me. And I looked and I said, oh my gosh, I'm a Republican.
That's it. That's exactly right.
And
so I switched in 88, and then we've been working at it since then.
Yeah.
And it's tough in obviously a place like Chicago. Come to Arkansas, and it hadn't even changed at that point in 90. I came in 96, 97. But just continue to do that work. And so today you look at it and say, wow, there's been a lot of folks in the trenches doing that work.
I grew up in Jonesboro, and I remember Governor Faubus, term after term after term. And I went to Little Rock Central High School in 1965, 66, 1966, I think. And I didn't realize that's just less than a decade after the 1957 historical Little Rock Central integration and Governor Faubus and the National
Democrat,
Guard.
Absolutely.
And in spite of all that life experience, not realizing that as much as we hate to say it, politics has a great influence in our daily living, and yet you and I both found out that we're voting against the very values we stand for.
That's exactly right.
So we've got about a minute, so we're just going to kind of give the audience a teaser here. You said you grew up in Chicago.
That's correct.
So I'm going to kind of paraphrase here.
All right.
You were placed in a box as an infant and left on a doorstep, and you were found by the gentleman who became your dad.
Just a good friend.
Just a good friend.
Yeah, yes.
And
That's right.
somehow in life's journey, you migrated from Chicago to Arkansas. So when did you make your way to Arkansas?
In 97.
97. Ooh, 26 years ago?
That's 26 years ago.
Substantially, noticeably different than Chicago and the inner city?
Absolutely.
So you came from the hood to the woods.
Absolutely.
That's what Judge Wood did, huh?
And I was only going to do about 2 years and then head back, and 26 years later, I'm still here. So.
You're married?
Married, 3 daughters, 2 son-in-laws, and 3 grandkids. And
oh my!
Gray hairs come with all those daughters. That's for sure.
And people say, "Well, Judge, when are you going to retire?" If you're like me, you say, "I can't retire. I have grandchildren."
Love those money. Guys. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Judge, excellent. We're going to take a break.
All right.
And we're going to be back here in just a moment. We're going to talk a little bit more about how you were raised you said in foster care, and now you're the leader of the state of Arkansas's Republican Constitutional Conservative Party. Woo. We'll take a break and be right back.
A mission field around you is filled with young hearts needing a forever family. And at Second Chance Youth Ranch, our team is committed to providing healthy, stable, loving homes and families to hurting children in the Arkansas foster care system and those up for adoption. Please contact us if you feel the tug at your heart to help foster or adopt, and find out the steps you could take to help fulfill a child's lifelong dream. Maybe you can't foster or adopt, but you could help. The need for thousands of children in the system is staggering. But with the help of faithful partners and business alliances, we are meeting those needs right now. Would you help us make a difference? Every gift, regardless of size, impacts a child's life directly and helps provide for a home in the gap right now. Visit the Second Chance Youth Ranch website at 2CYR.org to read more, watch the stories, and to make a contribution for a hurting child's care. Monthly partners are needed, so please contact us right away. And as you partner with this ministry, You are partnering with the Heavenly Father that has promised to be Father to the fatherless. God bless you for helping Second Chance Youth Ranch.
Welcome back to Second Chance Youth Ranch TV. Our special guest on this show is Judge Joseph Wood, who happens to be a personal friend of mine and recently became the chairman of the state of Arkansas's Republican Party.
That's correct.
Which is a little confusing to some folks because we're seeing a major demographic change as people all across America and Arkansas are going, you know what, we're Bible conservative folks. Why are we voting to murder the unborn and to keep people incarcerated in poverty and broken, poor schools?
That's right.
I get on my soapbox
I
here.
love it. I love it.
So, Judge, tell me, you started out in Chicago, and I kind of just left a teaser with our audience. You were left on a doorstep as a child, as an infant.
Sure. So about 15, 16 years ago, and I never knew this. Always knew I was adopted. That was it. The folks who came and got me out of the orphanage, they couldn't have kids. 5 years of marriage, and she said, let's go to the orphanage, we can foster a little girl.
Why did you end up on the doorstep and ultimately in an orphanage? Where's mom and dad?
Have no clue, didn't know any of that. 15, 16 years ago, the laws changed in Illinois, said if you ever adopt, you can have your original birth certificate. I'm thinking if I get my original birth certificate, I'll know who my birth parents are and let them know, hey, I'm okay, whatever happened, happened. Thanks for giving me life. Because you gave me life, somebody else gave me a life. They were overwhelmed by the number of people looking for their original birth certificate. I got it, and it said, this is your foundling birth certificate. I didn't know what foundling was. I had to look up the word. You were abandoned. You were found. You were found on this day. And I'm like, this day? That's my birthday. No, that's just the day you were found. You were found at this day, at this address, by this man, Caesar Johnson, and taken into the orphanage by this doctor. So, man, that blew me away. 46 years old, and I'm just now finding out that I was abandoned. I always knew I was adopted, but that was it. It was closed adoption.
When you found out that you were abandoned and you already knew you were adopted,
right, I just...
was that traumatic?
It took the wind out of me. One, my whole life, I'm just thinking this is my birthday. That's one, and now I'm finding out it's not. Then the second thing is, how bad was it? What did I do to be, given up or abandoned, let alone, and I thought it was me, and I went through a lot of that as a teenager. Well, I said, I got to find a doctor who took me into the orphanage, and I found him. He had died in 1999. I said, I wonder, can I find the guy who found me? And the very first number I called, it was the guy. His wife answered the phone. I said, I'm looking for this guy, Caesar Johnson. He spells his name a little differently. He would have saved someone, and his wife's like, save someone? My husband saved someone? I said, yes, ma'am. She said,
he was going to a night shift for work and stepped
was
over the box and you wiggled.
He snoring nights out. He's going to work that night, put his wife and kids to bed, walked out of his apartment complex, and there was a box with a blanket moving. He didn't know what it was, so he took his foot to move the blanket moved, and there was a kid in there.
And that was you.
And he was looking up and down the street, couldn't find anybody, and the snow and ice was blowing, so he picked the box up, walked back into his apartment, woke his wife, woke his kids, they walked around.
Is this the same gentleman, if I remember your story, that didn't think his life really had made a lot of difference?
That's correct.
He was a military veteran
He's a Korean
as well.
veteran, struggled after coming out of Korea because he lost some people.
And you made that phone call, and it also shifted his heart and his life.
I saved someone. I did something. And his
especially
family
after the war.
80 years old. His family said it just changed him. The state of Illinois gave him a citation saying, thank you for serving our country. Thank you for being a Korean veteran and serving our country. And thank you for saving this kid, because Arkansas gets a deputy secretary who's now running for judge.
Gosh.
It just changed. They invited me to come to his funeral. He died 6 years later, 86 years old. But his family has stayed in contact. They had heard the story all through his life, because he would talk about this kid that he found. I guess if you found a kid, you'll remember that. But
and in his 80s, and here you are in your 40s, y'all reconnect.
And it was.
Did you get to visit with him?
Oh yeah, had great relations. My kids were going to visit me when I wasn't around. His family still keeps up with me. They invited me to one of his reunions. Big family, huge family. To just share. And I said, what would I talk to your family about? He said, I don't want my family to take for granted what you've been searching for your whole life. And boy, when I got to the reunion, they had a 3-day celebration the last day I'm speaking to them. And some men older than me crying, and I didn't understand why. They said, we look forward to seeing Uncle Caesar every summer, because he always told us about this story of a kid that he found, and now you stand in front of us. So anyway, we have an influence and impact on folks that we just don't know. But we got to stay on this journey and this work that we do called living life and doing what he's called us to do.
Yeah, and I'm confident you're influencing people right now.
Wow.
It's 11 15 at night and they're watching this show and they're going, you mean to tell me that even though I was abandoned or I was raised in foster care or I came from a broken home,
That's right.
that God still has a plan for my
That's
life?
correct. That's correct.
And your journey, I'd love to just chart your journey from that doorstep in Chicago, not knowing your mom and dad, being 46, you still don't know your actual birthday. Did you ever figure out your actual birthday?
Still don't know.
So you're just a young man then. You can just tell everybody whatever you want to. They can't prove you wrong.
I don't know. Gray hairs give it away. That's exactly right. But it's been a journey. And I think at the end, we all had to stay on that journey. I think Christ was on his journey, and for the short time he was here, the influence and impact that he had even years later, 2,000 plus years. But if we don't stay on that journey, then how can we be salt and light to this work that he's asked and called us to do? And we can't keep it under a bushel. They talk about that. We got to take the bushel off and let the light shine. And we can see, the people can see that testimony in us that he's put in us. But that only happens if we stay on that journey.
Got 2 minutes in this segment, but how did you go from a doorstep to becoming involved, not just recognizing that you're a true conservative at heart, but how did you take a step into the political arena? Because this is a Christian show. Well, I don't believe that you all be involved in politics. You know, if good men do nothing, tyranny reigns, and we're nearly there, huh?
That's correct.
So we got a minute and a half. How did you get involved in politics? What was that first step?
The first step was Mom told me, you better take care of your brothers and sisters. I got to take a second job and don't let them get in trouble. Don't let them go. So I did it initially because she told me, and I didn't know it would grow as fast as youth group, the teen youth thing that I started, and the church gave me keys to the fellowship hall and all. But she also would tell me that you would do this for the rest of your life. You need to be engaged where you live. I initially did it because she told me, but it was true. I went to college, I stayed involved, I got back from college, and I'm like, some of this stuff is still the same. Why? And I jumped back in.
Why is the world not changing?
And that's because we got to keep doing this work. And
well, there's that secular song several years ago, I'm waiting on the world to change.
Oh, waiting on the world.
Waiting.
I remember that.
They that wait upon the Lord.
Woo.
And he'll give you an assignment, and you're on that assignment.
That's right.
And so I hear you saying, directly and indirectly, we need, your mama said, you need to be involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Because guess what? You can say, I don't want to be involved in it. It's going to involve you. It'll have an impact on you. We taught, in a brief time, we had high schoolers around the state that we would bring to the Capitol and do some training with them. And we had talked about the initial start of this country, and it would be boring to them because that happened back in the 1700s and all. But then we bring it fast forward and say, you know what? The young people don't vote. And they're going to change the laws to drive that you got to be 25 years old. And you can see the kids get all, hey, no, I'm getting my 16, I'm permitted. And well, if you don't get involved, you got parents and grandparents say, hey, I'll be happy to make it 25. So there's a reason why you got to be engaged. If you don't, it will have an impact on you whether you earn it or not. So you might as well roll up your sleeve.
Might as well roll up your sleeve and get her done.
That's right.
We're going to take a brief break, and we'll be right back with the judge.
My name is Damari, and I'm 15. I'm in 8th grade, and my favorite subject is science. I like to play football and swim. I am a good child, and I'm helpful, kind, and care about other people. I love all the families that are out there looking for a kid.
What kind of family would you want to adopt you?
A caring mom, caring dad. I just want somebody to love me instead of giving me away, like my mom did.
What would you want to do with a family?
See new things, go on trips.
What's it like not having a family?
It's not like you wanted it to be.
What do you want your life to be like?
Peaceful. And not having to be in facilities and going back places for places that I don't belong. Just know that I can always be kind and care about others.
Hey, welcome back to Second Chance Youth Ranch TV. These Project Zero videos where we're able to actually show children, hear their story, and hear their hearts. We always show it prior to coming back to this segment. It's so moving. We're not allowed to show our 50 plus children that we have in our care. DHS don't want our children in care, obviously, to be exploited,
Sure.
but Project Zero works with DCFS, and man, their videos are just heart-wrenching. They're so moving. Judge, you were raised in foster care. What was that like to be raised in a foster care? And did your foster parents adopt you?
Yes.
That's pretty awesome.
So it is, and again, I wouldn't change any of that experience, and different than I think what we got today, because the orphanage that I was in was run by Catholic nuns. So these are people who had a call on their lives, and the story is, in fact, this Saturday I'll be going back to that orphanage. Once a year they do a homecoming. Anybody and everybody
in Chicago.
In Chicago at that same, it's downtown Chicago. They don't do kids anymore, but they still feed the homeless. They still take care of young women. It's downtown Chicago, beautiful, beautiful place. It's now Chicago Catholic Charities, but back then it was St. Vincent's Orphanage for infants and young people. But it was a call on their lives, and the story is that these nuns said if these kids will never get adopted, they're gonna have a good life with us.
Yeah.
But if we want these kids to be adopted, we're gonna present some of the best kids. And so you look at pictures on the wall, black and white, law enforcement nuns, and the kids were happy. It was just there was not the bureaucracy that comes with red tape and state and federal government that we have in DCFS and DHS. So my experience was from what I remember, great. The nuns, they loved on. Some of the nuns who will be back there, they remember the kids back in and some of these kids were there in the 30s and the 40s. Wow. I was there in the 60s. They shut it down, the kids part, the orphanage in the 72, 73. Yeah. So they come back and they share stories. I call them my brothers and sisters. If they were there before me, they're my big brothers and sisters. Yeah. But anyway, the folks who came and got me, they had been married 5 years, couldn't have kids. She said, let's go to the orphanage and foster a little girl. They get there, she sees all these kids, you got to know her. She's like, I want them all. And she said, nope, this little boy right here. And so they start fostering me. And
how long were you actually in the orphanage?
When I got there, when I got found and they brought me in, I was probably, they said within 5 weeks old. Or 5 days. It could have been even less than that.
Really?
No more than 2 weeks. No umbilical cord, so they knew it was a little longer than newborn.
And you went straight to the orphanage?
Went to the orphanage and was there, and probably there for about 1.5 years before they started fostering. And then I got adopted at 10 years old. They ended up having 3 kids right after they started fostering me. It's almost like the Lord said, we're going to give you a house full of kids. We're going to get this one first.
You know, I've seen that a lot. I've actually had people said, I can't have a baby. Will you pray for me? And so I pray for them. And then a period of time passes. They get frustrated. They adopt. And then they get pregnant.
That's exactly right.
I've seen that a number of times.
I think you get so caught in trying to do.
Yeah.
And when you finally relax and let the Lord just do his thing, have your way, and he does.
So you are now in a high profile, very influential position as chairman of the state Republican Party. Why should any of our viewers really contemplate the platforms of the 2 major parties in our state and really engage in seeing what each stands for, judge their own values, then somehow be involved beyond just casting a ballot?
Sure.
Because doesn't politics and law really impact every one of us virtually every day? Every
day. Whether you get involved or not, it's going to. So if you're not involved, you're living under the policies and rules that somebody else did for you.
You're a victim, really.
And you can't really complain and fuss per se. And if you roll up your sleeves and you actually see the outcomes of that work that you've done. Again, last year was Roe v. being overturned. The Dobbs case got turned and pushed back to the states. But there's been a lot of people who were involved in that, pregnancy centers and churches and ministers and believers praying about that. So over 50 years, a lot of prayer, a lot of work, a lot of support. And then obviously the appointments of 3 justices, Supreme Court justices, got that all overturned. There's a reason why. You look at the platforms of any of the parties that's out there, and then you really start meshing that up about who you are, and that's doing this analysis of what do I believe, what is my core, what as a believer, it's all about the Kingdom Party for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the first party, and then secondary will be this Republican Party piece. But for me, it was an analysis back then in '88 of looking at the parties, and even recent, you see in one party it's like we want to ban God, we don't even want to have him part of the platform. I'm like, whoa, what? Wow, I don't know if I want to have anything to do with something like that.
But aren't all these controversial issues, whether it's abortion
or
gay rights or whatever, isn't that all happening on the East Coast?
No,
and West
no,
Coast?
it's happening right here in your schools, in your communities, in your counties, in your county. Exactly
Benton,
right.
Bryant, Bauxite, Little Rock.
Absolutely right. And so you're choosing not to, and enables more of this to happen. And I think when churches and body of Christ get involved and say, yeah, we're going to have our stance. We're going to have our say on what goes on in our kids' lives. We're going to have parental involvement, education choice, those type of things. It's critically important. And even if you don't have kids, your grandkids or somebody else, your neighbors and all. And again, everybody can adopt, everybody can foster, maybe can volunteer. Everybody can't maybe run for office, but you know somebody who is, and you can get behind and support them. And so whatever your level of engagement is being involved. And so you begin to see the fruits of that labor by being engaged and being involved.
Yeah, and some person said one time, and we've all repeated it, it's amazing how much can be done when nobody cares who gets the credit.
That's exactly right.
But someone's going to do it, and they're either going to do it according to their values, which you may not share.
That's right.
But if we allow them to be the driving force, then we live under their dictate.
That's correct.
And I always say, when I was laying in jail reading the Bible, and I went, why did they crucify Jesus? He went about doing good and healing all that were oppressed of the devil, and yet they crucified him. So you're going to get criticism.
Oh, absolutely right.
So in the words of the country singer, let's give them something to talk about. They're going to talk about us. They're going to criticize you for what you do, and then if you don't do anything, they criticize you and call you a do-nothing. Right. So let's give them something to talk about, Judge.
I love it. That's exactly right.
I want you to look at camera 2. We've got 40 seconds, and just tell people why they should support organizations involved in mentoring, fostering, and adopting. Places like Second Chance Ranch.
Life matters, and I think at the very end, that's what it's all about. As body believers, as a Christian, we are called to be salt and light, and you have young folks who are most vulnerable. We're to be the support the widows and the orphans of the world, be a father to the fatherless, and you get a chance to do that. Some of these kids are looking for a forever home, a second chance, and so whether it be a pregnancy center, whether you're giving respite to someone who is a foster family, or you yourself saying, you know what, I got time, I got energy, and I want to pour it into a life. Life matters and you matter. We need you.
Yep. You can make a difference. Thanks for watching Second Chance Youth Ranch TV. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Be blessed.